Intel versus AMD. Which do I prefer? Well, I was a big Intel person in the early years until I first started actually researching into AMD. There was a lot of issues with AMD when they first started off because they didn't really work with Windows initially. But with the Ryzen series, it has transcended that of Intel. And in certain data servers and certain surveys, you can see that in the last just 4 years, that AMD in some areas has taken over almost 20% of Intel shares. In the same data, which I will post somewhere here, you will see that it starts off at 98% share for Intel, and it works down to about 76% within about 4 years, from 2017 to 2021. Not even the end of 2021, it's like midway. And this just shows that during that phase from 2017 to 2021, that's essentially the Ryzen phase. And the overtake is because it was showing you that you could get more bang for buck. And I'm all for that. I'm all for the bang a buck. Bang a buck? Bang for a buck. Jeez. And not only that, is that Intel was so complacent with their market share, with their 98%, that when they came out with hexa-core, octa-core for especially their mobile units for laptops and everything, they were pretty content at keeping it at 4 cores and 8 threads. I'll give you an example. Arguably from about the 7th or 8th gen, I believe it's the i5 8350U, and you can compare that to a 10th gen 10351 something G maybe in there. They have a weird letter system. And between these, there's about 2 to 3 years. So you can even argue with the 11th gen, though they did make some substantial changes there. But the 12th gen is when they started introducing the E and P cores, efficient cores and power cores, and offering you on paper like 16 cores, 8 cores. And this is only because of the Ryzen series, and this is only because of the share market. It wasn't because they wanted to give consumer more than what they were paying for. And they were still dominating the market, so why change what's not broke? And in some cases, I can see a business doing that from 8th to 9th gen. Yeah, you don't really need to revolutionize anything. But then to 10th gen was almost exactly the same. And then you can even argue if it's from 7th gen to 11th gen, that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's almost 5 years of virtually no changes. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, they made a lot of improvements. The nanometers are smaller. There's less power consumption. And to some extent, that's pretty much true. They didn't make it more efficient, but they also didn't change much. Imagine buying a 4-year-old computer, right? And the computer has 4 cores, 8 threads. And 3 years down the line, you go to a 10th gen thinking like, oh, okay, this is time to upgrade. And you look at a benchmark, and I know benchmarks aren't the full truth, but you look at a benchmark and you're seeing a 1% performance to 2% overall. That's crazy. I mean, no offense. I don't care that you cut the consumption down by 15%. Like, yeah, I got a longer battery life, but that's what power saver mode is for, right? We have the options to calibrate our computers to how much power we need. But what else? Am I getting a little bit more performance out of that? Am I getting more cores? Am I getting more threads? Nope. So imagine someone buying an 8th gen and someone buying a 10th mobile version and getting almost identical performances. Not in all cores, not in all systems, but across the i5s. That's kind of crazy. So Ryzen set up the mark where they showed that less is more in price, but also bang for buck by giving you more cores, more threads for arguably the same or less than what Intel was doing. So now Intel had to up the game to try and keep up. So Intel's not now ahead of the game. Intel was holding on to this lead. They've been at this a lot longer than AMD has. And now that they are leading in chipware, because now I believe the Intel i5 is the best budget gaming chip because of its core count and its efficiency and its benchmarks. But I can't help but wonder, how long were they holding on to that for? That P and E core didn't just happen overnight, right? I'm sure they had that in the bank and they're like, we have 98% the market share. Why care? And this is the problem with big companies. When there's a monopoly, no one seems to care or want to improve. And I think this translates to a lot of technology today, especially with cell phones. With my previous video, there's a whole rant on that. When we don't have competition, we have complacency and we have dominance, meaning they don't want to change anything because they're still gathering money every year with every purchase without having to change anything. So my biggest thing is we gotta allow more competitors into this market so that we have more competitive pricing, and on top of that, we have more innovative advancements across the board for all technologies. So if it affects cores, it affects CPUs, affects GPUs, affects mobiles, cameras, AI, all of that. That if I'm gonna buy something and I can save $500 on an 8th-gen old CPU and go to a new laptop that's like 10th gen and pay $500 more for that, I'd rather just buy the older laptop. So that's my rant. I will see you in the next one. Again, there's no scheduling, no sponsorship, and AMD all the way. Peace.